guys, 15-game main slate coming your way this evening. I need a pricey pitcher. I'm talking over 8K that you're interested in rostering tonight. Matt, who is it?
There's a lot of good choices on this slate, and I normally feel like I would have a better intuition about who the popular ones will be. But Zach Wheeler's up there, Sean Manaea. I think I'm staying away from Walker Buehler and Lance McCullers to a pretty significant extent. So the guy in this category that I feel like will go a bit overlooked is Taiwan Walker, and it's mostly about recent performance. Dylan Cease is priced right around him, and Cease has just been much better lately. Walker has struggled a lot in recent starts, but he did rack up 7 strikeouts against the Braves last time out. So I feel like that's at least a good indication that there's not something fundamentally wrong with him, and he's just had some bad luck, just pitched poorly. He had a Pirates game where the Mets had that weird play with the slow roller in front of the plate, and he knocked it into foul territory, and that kind of cost him the whole start. He had a tough matchup against the Blue Jays around then, too. So I think just facing this Marlins team is likely to cure him of just bad results because the Marlins traded away half of their starting offensive lineup. And it's just a really, really good matchup in a really good pitcher's park. So I think Walker could be a bit contrarian, at least relative to some of the other high-priced arms. So I think that's the guy I'm leaning towards.
Paul, who's the guy you're looking towards?
Well, Jesse, at the top of the board, you can certainly bank on a solid outing from Buehler, who's had an outstanding season. Everybody knows that. And you can make a strong case for Wheeler as well. I don't like Buehler's matchup against Houston, though. So I'm fading him definitely in this one. I'm going down the board a little bit, saving a few bucks and pivot to Eunjin Ryu for 8,700, who finally gets to make his Toronto home debut a year and a half after signing with the Jays. That's unbelievable to me. They've gone through hell and back, the Blue Jays club. He went through a flat spot a few weeks ago, but once again looks to be in top form. I note that he's allowed a total of only 4 earned runs in his last 4 starts, striking out 20, walking 4, and allowing no homers in that stretch. His offense was silenced yesterday, and I don't expect a repeat, and haven't seen that happen from that group in a long while. His mound opponent, Zach Plesac, comes into this matchup having surrendered 11 bombs in his last 61.2 innings pitched. I'm looking for some fireworks at the Rogers Center today.
All right, Paul. Now hit me with a pitcher who is going to be under 8K that you're interested in. Who's that?
I'm looking at Johnny Cueto versus the D-backs. I have a rule in fantasy sports. I look for the worst team in majors and find out who's pitching against them, and that's the deal today. He is given the Giants at least 5 innings pitched in his last 7 starts. Jesse, his strikeout to walk rate very favorable at 82-19 over 93 innings pitched. He's also got a strong head-to-head matchup against the veterans in the D-backs lineup. All of that adds up to a very high win probability. So I'm going with Cueto tonight.
Matt, who are you going with?
There's a lot of pitchers to choose from, I think, in all of the tiers tonight. It's a pretty strong pitching slate, but I think paying all the way down to someone like Jordan Lyles at 5,100, that seems to make the most sense to me because we'll get to it in a minute. There are some expensive hitters that I think will be overlooked. So to be able to afford a lot of these guys, I think getting the savings with Lyles, who isn't really a good pitcher, but he is at home. He's facing an Angels team that's a pretty far below average offense without Mike Trout. They have Shohei Ohtani and then basically no one else that's very good. So I think the matchup for Lyles is pretty strong, and he's just really, really cheap. So it's not that I expect him to have a huge game or anything, but I think he could be pretty solid. And then he affords you the opportunity to just get some hitters that otherwise you might not be able to get.
All right, speaking of hitters, a big bat, Matt, someone who's 5,000 or above. You just mentioned you might save some salary with a pitcher. So who are you paying up for?
Yeah, I actually really like the Dodgers for today. I think no one's going to go there. And maybe I'm a broken record on this because I feel like this has been several of the last few shows over the last couple of weeks. But when the Dodgers are low owned, it's too good of a spot to pass up because there's just too many highly talented hitters on this team. And with Lance McCullers on the other side, it just won't be a priority for much of the field. There's a game at Coors Field. There's the Yankees at home against the Orioles, which is always appealing even after they weren't good last night. There's the Red Sox in Detroit. So I just think the Dodgers go entirely overlooked. And McCullers is a good pitcher, but I don't think he's as good as his results indicate. His walk rate is over 4 per 9 this year, and he's also just faced a really easy schedule pitching in the AL West, where the only great offense in that division is his own team, the Houston Astros. And he's faced a bunch of weaker offenses. He's had, I think in his last 10 starts, he's faced the Mariners a couple times, the Rangers 3 times. He got a start against Detroit. And then Oakland pre-Starling Marte trade just wasn't that good of an offense either. So he's had a decent year, but it's against an easy schedule. And just the Dodgers are getting healthy now. I don't think Trey Turner will be in the lineup, but you have Mookie Betts back. and then Max Muncy, Justin Turner, Will Smith. I mean, there's just so many good hitters on this team, and I think they all come in like 1, 2, maybe 3% owned at most, and there's just huge upside there. So Mookie Betts 5,500. I guess if I have to stick to one, that's the guy I'm going with.
All right, Paul, if you had to stick to one, a guy who's 5,000 or above, who would it be?
I love the call on Mookie Betts. He's my favorite in that top range. He currently is on one of the hottest streaks in his career, and that's really saying something. Over his last 10 games, an OPS of 1.392, 5 homers and 9 extra base knocks, 16 for 41 overall. He'll also enjoy the platoon advantage against the lefty Lance McCullers. But I also want to mention you can build a case for the Blue Jays' big bats today. I see them putting on an air show. Springer, Guerrero, and Bichette are all good plays today for me. The new guys on a power streak, the big guys a triple crown threat, and the fledgling hair products model is also got 16 stolen bases and 16 tries this year, along with all his other crooked numbers. So there's a lot to like just down the street from where I live.
All right, Paul, what about a lot to like under the 5K range? So if you got to save some money here, who's a hitter that you're looking at?
Well, Jesse, you know that I like the hot hitting sluggers in this range. So how about Salvador Perez at $4,800? He's enjoying a career best power surge with 26 long balls and 66 ribbies in the bank already this season. He comes into tonight's contest on a tear, swinging from the heels with 5 homers and 10 ribbies in his last 10 games. If you want to take a real cheap flyer for $2,000, get Gerardo Parra into your lineup tonight if you believe in his 10 for 20 history against Zach Wheeler in head-to-head matchups, leaving me to wonder if Parra has something of a book on the Mets hurler.
All right, Matt, what about you? A hitter under 5K?
I'm going to the opposite side of the same game. So I actually like the Astros offense too. There's just a bunch of really good hitters here in this Astros-Dodgers game that I think none of them will be popular in any significant sense. So there's a lot of cheap hitters at Coors Field tonight, and I think that's where most of the field goes, and that's why we'll get this game just going mostly overlooked, especially at the lower end of the salary range. So I'm looking at Kyle Tucker in particular, 3,100. Walker Buehler is a very, very good pitcher, and I think he's actually the favorite for NL Cy Young right now. But Tucker is just way too good of a hitter to be priced this low with his home run upside. And Buehler, I think, has been overachieving to a pretty significant extent. His left on base percentage is well into the 80s, and he's a guy who can give up fly balls. So Buehler could have a game where he strikes out 7 or 8 guys and gives up a few solo home runs. Maybe Kyle Tucker gets 2 of them. So I think you're just getting a really low-owned power hitter for a cheap price that just is in a good spot. And it's not your typical good spot because the pitcher on the other side is a good one, but he does give up fly balls and Tucker has the platoon advantage. So I think 3,100 is just way too cheap for him.